Hola amigos, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'd like to share with you my viewpoints on the Alaska meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Firstly, I need to announce that this is a thought experiment. First, we need to imagine Donald Trump, the President of the United States, sit down with Vladimir Putin in Alaska. Yes, Alaska. Once Russian territory, sold to the United States in 1867 for just 7.2 million. Today, the stakes are far higher, and looming in this background, an international criminal court arrest warrant accusing Putin of war crimes. Would the US dare arrest him? Or would Trump, a man known for unconventional diplomacy, use the moment to make a deal the world never saw coming? First, we need to talk about the ICC question deeply. The legal elephant in the room, Putin, in our scenario, is a wanted man, and an ICC arrest warrant issued in 2023. Under normal circumstances, if a wanted person steps into a country that recognizes ICC jurisdiction, the host nation would be expected to execute the warrant. But here's the twist. The United States is not a member of the ICC. In reality, Washington has long criticized the court's jurisdiction over non-members, so legally, the US has no binding obligation to hand Putin over. But politics isn't just about legal obligation. It's about choices, and Donald Trump's political personality is crucial here. Trump has a history of cozying up with strongmen, for example.
체제 구축에 관한 문제들에 대한 포괄적이며 심도 있는 논의가 진행되었습니다. 경의하는 최고령도자 동지께서는 트럼프 대통령을 비롯한 미국 측 대표단과 이렇게 자리를 같이 한 것을 기쁘게 생각한다고 하십니다. 산책을 마치고 미 합중국 대통령은 최고령도자 동지께 야수라고 불리운다는 자기의 전용차를 직접 보여드렸습니다.
They have a lot of close meeting. Trump prefers private bargaining over public confrontation. Arrest Putin would shatter that kind of personal diplomacy style, and more dangerously, risk escalation with a nuclear-armed Russia. There's more wild card, unless anti-Putin forces in Russia succeed internally and struck deal with Trump, handing Putin over would be unthinkable. The second part, I'd like to talk about the history of Alaska. Why Alaska? Because history matters in geopolitics. In 1867, Russia sold Alaska to US at what was seen as a bargain price today. But to many Russian nationalists, in their imagination, Alaska is a lost jewel. In our hypothetical, Putin sees this meeting as a symbolic return to lost glory. And here's a very dangerous question. Would Trump be clever enough or reckless enough to dangle any territorial concession in exchange for peace in Ukraine? This is pure speculation, but we can't ignore that. Trump prides himself on being a deal maker who breaks the rule of traditional diplomacy and symbolic land-lease agreement, economic zones, or fishing rights in Alaskan water could be a creative solution for Trump. We don't know how he thinks in his weird mind. But for the rest of the world, it would look like appeasement, depressed as a pragmatism. In the third part, I'd like to talk about the Ukraine situation. Why Ukraine is absent from this meeting. It's really a tragedy in this hypothetical. Ukraine isn't even at the table in this Alaska summit. The very nation whose territory has been invaded is excluded from the core negotiation. This actually echoes with a long history of great powers making decisions over the heads of smaller states. From Yalta to the Cold War proxy deals. To be frank, I need to contest that. Any agreement reached without Ukraine's direct involvement would be inherently unstable because it ignores the lived reality, sacrifices, and the sovereignty of the Ukrainian people. In the fourth part, I'd like to read back to the history again, the Chamberlain parallel. History often offers an uncomfortable warning. In 1938, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain returned from Munich, declaring he had secured peace for their time after conceding the Sudetenland to Hitler. It was appeasement, a gamble that failed spectacularly, embodying Nazi expansion. Is Trump in this hypothetical the second Chamberlain? Would he present an Alaska-based deal with Putin as personal triumph, only to find that it fuels further Putin's ambitions? Trump's personality makes this scenario both plausible and perilous. He thrusts on spectacle and personal credit. He views diplomacy as transactional, not alliance-based. Last, he often dismisses expert consensus in favor of his own interests and instincts. This choice could produce a deal with short-term media glory and long-term danger and geopolitical disaster. To make a conclusion, in our thought experiment, the Alaska Summit is a microcosm of a larger truth. Geopolitics is shaped not just by laws and treaties, but by personalities, power imbalances, and the ghost of history. The first, the ICC question reminds us justice in international relations is often selective. The second one, the Alaska question shows how history can be used and misused in bargaining. The third one, the absence of Ukraine warns us the danger of great power decision making without the consent of those most affected. And the Chamberlain analogy challenges us to see beyond the immediate optics of a peace deal. Whether or not such a meeting is happening, the moral remains. Peace without justice is fragile. In diplomacy, the stage may be global, but the consequences are always local, and history has a long memory.